Hi everybody, my name is Elaine and welcome back to another episode of Conversations with CAUFP, the Canadian Association of Urban Financial Professionals. Today we're here with Itonia Collier, and she is a change management expert within our corporate financial institutions here in Canada. And I was very privileged to meet Itonia at a gathering that CAUFP had a few years ago, and we struck up a conversation around just cultural identity and what is it like to be a professional in corporate Canada or corporate North America. However, so interesting that for, millennials and Gen Zs to be thinking about this subconscious baggage that you carry, that as you grow your professional trajectory and your growth, you're constantly thinking about perception back home,
Absolutely.
your home country, your extended families, but also this sort of invisible hand that is pulling you and saying, what about us, right? Like I know with my culture, we have that, and I wanted to deep dive with Itonia today, and let's just get into it.
Absolutely. So no, thanks for the introduction. So I'll give you a brief background of my story, who I am in my professional life.
Definitely.
So I was born in Sierra Leone, West Africa, and it was the height of the Civil War. So I have been through, you name it, bombs, guns, death, fires, everything. And then we migrated here as a family in 2000 and went to school here, built a life here, and it was truly pack your bags and come to Canada with nothing. And we're very fortunate for this opportunity that Canada has given us, because we literally came from a war zone and came here. I went to school here, got my master's here, and then I slowly walked up the corporate world in financial institution and in change management. So while you're growing professionally, you still think of the people you left back home.
Of course.
And you still want to help, but you also want to be sustainable in who you are, your identity, and growing your own legacy. And there's that guilt that you sometimes have and no one talks about, because when you were younger, everyone had a village. You had your uncles, aunties, cousins, brother, sister who looked after you. Yeah. So when you come here and you're perceived as making it in their own standard, not knowing that you have your own bills, you have your own struggles and your own, baggage here, you're still expected to send money back home. You're still expected to help someone go to school. You're still expected to say, you made it. It's that survivor guilt, You made it, what about us? So it's a matter of how do you navigate those conversations? How do you set boundaries? But also, how do you help the people that you also left behind? Because one thing I'll say for myself and a lot of West African people, one thing we're taught is community.
Yes.
One thing we're also taught is loyalty. And when you don't do what they expect from you, you're seen as, oh, you don't care about us, or you're on for yourself, or you're too independent. What about us?
Right.
So it's how do you navigate those conversations, but setting boundaries in a healthy way, where it really doesn't cost you your own sanity and your own peace of mind, but you still want to help your families that you've I don't want to say you've left behind, but we have different life experiences and different ways of navigating through the world right now.
It's so interesting that this guilt that sits with you, right? Because it's not, I don't think it's a conscious choice, especially when, for you as an individual, like you came with your family, right? Like, so as such a young child, but still carry that, right? And I guess one of the questions that first come into mind and stuff that I have been thinking about is, how do you separate yourself from, this is a part of your responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to take on that. And I won't call it, there are words that are associated that is so negative, like you said, the baggage, the burden, and all of that, because then you don't want to lose your community.
Of course.
Right? They're your family. So
Yeah.
how do you start kind of peeling away at some of these so many intricacies of your identity?
That's a really good question. I think for me, it's easier for me than others because I'm very assertive and very strong. I would want to say my parents have taught me to speak my mind and taught me to be honest with myself. And I think one of the key things here is with financial help back home is financial honesty that we don't talk about.
Yes.
And financial honesty is being honest with yourself to say, why am I really doing this? Am I just doing this to be perceived as nice?
Okay.
Am I doing this because of shame? You don't want to be shamed? Am I really doing this? Like, why am I really doing this? And one thing I've learned about myself is I have to be honest with myself. And when I was doing it, it was because I wanted to be seen as nice.
Okay.
And nice doesn't always get you far.
Right.
Sometimes nice gets you drained.
Yeah.
Nice gets you blamed. Nice gets you resentment. Because I'll tell you this, when you help one time, everyone appreciates it. When you help 2 times, everyone expects it. When you help 3 times, it becomes an entitlement. When you help 4 times, dependency. And then when you don't help the 5th time, resentment. And people don't really understand or appreciate the 4 times you've helped. They remember that 1 time you don't help.
Of course.
Right? And you have to say to myself, I did the best I could at this moment. And for me, it was a matter of how to say no. And that was my no. I did the best I could at this moment. And I stopped. And one thing I also have learned is, what if I wasn't in the picture, how would you have helped yourself?
Well, I like that.
What are you doing to better yourself?
Right.
Are you just asking because you want it for right now? But what about tomorrow? Right. What would you do? Also, one thing I've also learned is being transparent with where you are right now. You can tell someone to say, I really don't have it because I'm doing this, 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 and this, right? And I think the perception for a lot of people is when you end up coming to Canada, they think you've made it. You know, when growing up, we have the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air with the mansions and everything. So people think, oh, you live in a mansion, you have your drivers, and you have this. And I was like, oh, no. When you forget your first paycheck, half of it is already gone.
Right.
Right?
Taxes. Sorry.
Half of it's already gone. And then you have your mortgage, you have bills, you have phone, you have all these obligations. And by the time you have to even save for yourself, you really have nothing left, right? So for me, it actually forced me to think instead of survival to legacy. Survival is more so making it to the end of the month. That's survival. Legacy is putting systems in place so you don't have to make it for the next month. You can make it to the next generation. So that way, when you have your children, you are not expecting them to send money to you, right? Because one thing I find also is, as an immigrant, you care for yourself, you care for your partner, you care for your kids. Now you also have to care for your parents, and then you have to care for the whole community. So it's a lot of pressure of one person. And dare I say, you even talk to your parents about retirement home. That's another shameful ask. It's not allowed, right?
Yeah.
So you are your retirement for your parents sometimes, unless you start being transparent and you have that financial honesty to say, what are you doing for retirement? Are you opening up your TFSA? Are you saving for your retirement? Do you have an RRSP? Do you want to learn about stocks? Do you want to learn about real estate? We can now start having those conversations, but it was never done before. One, they didn't know. They weren't exposed, or they didn't have that opportunity. And I think that's the biggest thing I actually like is being African, you're taught about community, you're taught about pride, you're taught about resilience. But being a Canadian, you're also taught about opportunities. You're taught about access. You talk about system. You talk about legacy. And that merge of the two can actually be a great thing. Sometimes people struggle to say, well, where do I belong? Am I really Sierra Leonean? Am I really Canadian? Where do I go? You don't have to choose. You can actually be both. And there's a strength in being both.
You've just covered off so many things that I want to unpack for us, because it's amazing you just took us through 5 cycles of emotions.
Oh, really?
Of help,
Yes.
right? And to be able to actually place a phase, a milestone on each of those, you know, times that you would do an extension and all of that, I think it's a really important thing for each of us to kind of, for those who are in these positions, who are feeling these obligations and these guilt, for you to slow down and think, like, what has been what has been done in history? What have you already committed and have gone through? And then the other thing that I love the sort of continuity of all of the podcasts through CAUFP here, which is this self-reflection, this self-accountability on, you know, are you being completely transparent to yourself to know what are the ins and outs, right? Like, have you covered yourself, right? It's the same thing we learn on the flight exit plans and the flight safety, right? Like, before you put the mask on someone else,
Put it on yourself first.
have you even secured yourself? And I think as culture people, sometimes you forget yourself. As you just said, you are that, you know, what they coin now, sandwich generation. You have yourself, your partner, your family, your parents above, your kids potentially below, and then all of your community around you, right?
Yeah.
And I love the one thing that you just said now about, instead of living paycheck to paycheck, which is just survival, legacy, right? And I think the way that you kind of built the definition and the meaning to legacy is something that our constituents and we really should take a deeper dive in, because so many of us, especially with inflation and the market and everything that's been happening worldwide, but especially in Canada as well, where I think some other countries don't get to see it so transparently, but living paycheck to paycheck is probably 80 to 85% of the Canadian population. And we don't stop to pause, reflect, right, itemize, potentially just identify where your leakage and all of that may be, and really be, hold yourself accountable to, what does it mean? What will it take for you to build a legacy, maybe?
Yeah.
Right? Like you just said, there are these resources. Help us understand. How did you, I love that you've said, you're more assertive and that's offered you a voice, right?
Yeah.
But how did you go and build all of these systems for yourself?
Yeah.
Like, how did you do that?
Well, I would have to say it starts from you and what you want out of your life. I had a really good mentor who actually described legacy in a completely different way than I thought. Because initially I thought legacy was just, how many people can I touch and all this money and all this wealth. But legacy is just, what do people say about you when you're not there? Mm-hmm. Legacy is about how do you want people to feel when they hear your name? Because money will come when you build yourself. Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard those stories of those lottery winners where they make so much money and within 5 years it's gone, right?
Yes.
So when you really want to build your legacy and you have all that money, all those families will now say, I'm your first cousin.
Right.
I'm your second cousin. Where have you been?
Yeah.
But when you start to say, what do I really want of my life? Do I want to be kind? Do I want to be compassionate? Do I want to be assertive? Do I want to be courageous? Do I want to be curious about the world? Do I want to empower people? When you start being honest with you and doing the work, whether it's therapy, whether it's mentorship, whether it's just reaching out to your community and helping your community, it can even be about relating, knowledge transfer, right? Money will start to flow, right? And then the other thing I would say is seek those opportunities as well. Mm-hmm. Seek knowledge, right? In my space, there wasn't a space where I could just have a group of friends where I could just talk about money. It was taboo because that's my culture. We don't talk about money. We can talk about struggles, but we don't talk about stocks and we don't talk about bonds and golds and real estate. Yeah. So one thing I started to do was find people who are not just like you physically, but find people who are like you mindset-wise. Because I'll tell you this, when I start talking to people about real estate who were my friends, it was about fear. how can you really do this? What if the housing market
Yeah,
bubbles and crashes?
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do? It was all out of fear because we were taught at a young age, doctor, lawyer, engineer, accountant. No one even knows what change management is from where I'm from. So you have to educate people. There's other things you can do other than those 5 things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then I seek out people with like-minded people, and the conversation was no longer about fear. Then the conversation was about execution. Tell me about this idea. How are you going to execute it? Who do you know that's going to do, I'm making it up, market and other strategy? Oh, I know Bob from 5 years ago. Bob can help you. And when you start having those conversations, I realized actually we were taught people will compete with you if you start talking about your ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Not in my case. People actually want to collaborate with you. People want to help you. That's how you actually can also build a different type of community where you can have like-minded people who encourage you, who challenge you, not out of fear, but out of respect, and they actually want to see you grow. So those are things that you can also do as well to build that type of legacy. The other thing I would say is education. There are so many books, so many videos, so many podcasts, so many things that you can do to gain the knowledge and to apply the knowledge. Application, I would say, is far greater than just the ideation.
Right.
Because there are so many times we go to all these motivational speakers. We're like, we're going to do it. We're going to start this new business. We're going to save. We're going to do this. And then you come home, you do nothing.
Yeah.
And it's about that consistency. It's about that discipline. And one thing I also do is I have a vision board. So whenever I walk by, that motivation stays because I know what it is that I want to be before I know what it is that what I want to achieve. So I always try to be first and then the achievements come.
Right.
Because when I start saying no, people think twice before approaching me with an ask, right? So you learn to say no and you learn to be assertive. When I want to seek opportunities and you're more open and transparent, in our culture, help me, I help you.
Yeah.
Right? It's just that sense of pride and that sense of collaboration and that sense of community that we like. All those things that people don't talk about, those are also legacy because you can say, Elaine reached out to me and I helped her with this. But you don't need to advertise it. You do it because you really have worked on yourself of reciprocity, of empathy, of trying to help. That's also legacy. And when Elaine has this marketing person, it's like, let me call it Tonya because she helped me. And it's not out of force. It's just out of just pure wanting to be a part of a community. And you're building a system now to say, okay, how can I now move this forward? How can I go from helping one person to helping 4 or 5 different people without exhausting yourself and also learning and becoming better?
No, I love that. I love the whole transitioning, right? What does it mean to almost like be a nice person, right?
Yeah.
Like what you touched on earlier where your core, your driver was, I wanted to, maybe at the beginning, and I appreciate your honesty because I don't think many of us would ever be so brazen to say, I wanted to be perceived this way.
Yeah.
Right? I think many of us will be like, I thought it was nice. I thought it was this. But to really hit your like complete, deep, raw, authentic self to say, no, I cared about perception, right?
Yeah.
Which we all do. I
did.
think, there's a funny thing where we put taboo things, right, to terms, right? Like, perception is taboo, right? It's taboo to be perceived a certain way, but it's human nature, right? Just like you had said, it's human nature to want to create sustainment, to have legacy. But what legacy is really can be defined by you.
100%.
Right? And what you just said, your mentor previously had a complete different definition of what legacy was for them. And then now you're creating this type of legacy for yourself and seeking the right community, right? Where I like the thing that you touched on where the community that you seek out that might be like-minded might also take time for you to find the space where it's collaborative instead of combative and or competitive, right? So that may not be a one and done, That may be a couple of, okay, here are a couple of spaces where we want to drive change and we want to change the dial and all of that. But it might not be the first, forum that you hit that might be the right fit for you. So it's kind of staying with it.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's also hard in the professional world too, right? When you
tell us. Yes. yes.
It's definitely hard being from Sierra Leone, being an immigrant, going into the corporate world, and I am in the financial institution, specifically technology, right? So when you walk in the room, it's just me.
And you're also a woman.
Oh, I'm a woman. I'm young-ish, and I'm also West African. Yeah. So you walk in a room and you don't see anyone like you, right? So when you walk in, you also have to think to myself, how do I want to present myself? That used to be a thought. How do I want to present myself? If I speak too loud, I'm going to be the angry Black woman. If I speak too little, they might not think I'm useful. Yeah. And then you also hear that you have to work 3 times as hard to do the same job.
Prove your value.
Prove your same value. But then I had to really reflect, and I had a therapist, trust me, and I had to reflect to myself, I was like, who do I just want to be? Not who do I want corporate to change me.
Okay.
Right? I wanted to assimilate, and I wanted to be like everyone. And that can get you in the door, but authenticity keeps you in, right? And I just said, I'm just tired of being what everyone wants me to be. I can speak my mind, but I have to speak it respectfully. Right. So I have to learn communication. It's not changing who I am. It's just being a better version of me.
Right.
And that's not losing your culture. It's just that as whole, learning how to communicate has also helped me in my personal life, right? Instead of saying, pass me that water, he's like, hey, do you mind passing me that water? Same message, just different tone. It's the same thing. It's not losing who you are, it's just being a better version of you.
Okay, what you just said there, we need to
do it.
Deep dive. So I love everything you had just said, and I would say too, much of the younger constituents, the younger demographic, there's recently, right, like the last 10 years, this is the whole sense of self. Right? Preservation of self, preservation, and show up authentically as who you are. And I think that message had perhaps taken a different tone with the younger generation, right? Whereas, take me as I am. This is who I am. And, I deserve a promotion, right? Like, and all of this. But I love what you actually just said, which is you're in an environment that is still very much like, a corporation is private, right? A business is private. So what you just said, I'm learning things to better me.
Yeah.
You've changed the reception of something that instead of it being about you're changing me and I have me, as how I show up in my life and how I want to be seen or perceived and who I want to be. But that the moment that you said, who do I want to be as a person in the world? Right? A part of corporate world.
Yeah.
But
in
general, that was one pivotal moment for you,
Yeah.
right? Like light bulb moment. Then the other part was instead of taking the message and or the requirement as, this potentially is a negative thing, but it's like, how can I do this so that it's better for me?
Absolutely.
Right? Like, but how did you see through that? How did you have that light bulb moment where you were like,
I was miserable. Oh. I was miserable. That's because, again, I was in technology.
Okay.
Every room was male dominated.
Right.
Everyone's arguing with each other. A lot of powerful people there. And I just said to myself, here, like I would sometimes go into a meeting having anxiety, right? I was like, if I speak too loud, they're going to do this. You know what, Etonia, just speak. Just speak, just be kind, but just speak your mind.
Right.
And then I also learned, and I talked to my mentor, and he said to me, you don't have to be like them to get your message across. Because I'm always in that mindset of, if you're in a room full of people arguing and dominant, you also have to be dominant, right? And I said, no, I'm actually a very kind person, so I'm going to ask very kindly. And what I actually notice is people, no matter which corporation, which culture, which race, which gender, people like to be seen.
Yes.
And people like to be appreciated.
Of course.
So if I'm doing a presentation, I'll just say, Bob helped me with this. He worked really hard. He was fantastic. That's still showing appreciation to Bob. And you know what happens when I go behind the scenes? It's like, oh my God, thank you so much, blah, 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 blah. And the next meeting, when me and Bob were arguing the next time, Bob is now my new best friend, right? So when you lead in, how can I actually lead with integrity? How can I actually, leave with peace in mind? I can still disagree with your point, but I don't have to hate you as a person.
Of course.
Right? Because I don't know what you've been through.
Right.
And I talked earlier about I went through wars, I went through this, and I went through that. I don't know what someone else has gone through. So when you lead with that empathy, it actually shows up in the workplace. So I always say disagree with the point, but you don't need to be fighting with the person. And sometimes fighting with the person can also be argued as fighting with their identity, and people hold that on. So I always go in with trying to understand that person first and having that common ground. So when I know you're disagreeing with me, you're not trying to change me. You're just trying to change the work or change how we approach the work. And I actually stand very strongly with that as well. Yeah.
No, I completely agree, right? We have to be able to isolate when you're in the workplace. It's about business.
It's about business.
Right?
And I find that a lot of people, I'm going to get a lot of slack for this, but a lot of people sometimes now want to go into entrepreneurship because they don't like the corporate culture.
Okay.
Because they feel like, I've asked a couple of people, not everyone who's an entrepreneur, I should say this. I've asked a couple of people, oh, you want to be an entrepreneur? Oh, what kind of business? I don't know. That's the answer. Why do you want to be an entrepreneur? I just don't want to report to anyone. I just want to do my own thing. So it's not the fact that they want to be an entrepreneur. It's the fact that they don't want to be changed in the corporate culture.
Interesting.
They don't want to lose their identity in the corporate culture. So they rather just be on their own because they want to have that sense of identity. They do want to have that sense of belonging, but when they don't find that, when they feel lonely at work, they feel like they are not accepted at work, I might as well do my own thing. And that's what I really want to resonate with people, of finding that commonality, finding ways you can belong at work so you don't feel the burden just to leave. Leaving is not always the answer. It can help if you have this great idea and you're passionate about something, but if you're leaving because you don't want to report to anyone and you don't feel belong, then challenge yourself to say, what can I do? Not because you want to belong, but what can I do to create a space where you and I can work together, you and I can be more effective? Because I'll tell you this, once you start your own business, there's a whole lot of problems there too. You're not going to start a business by yourself, and you're not going to end the business by yourself. You're still going to have to work with people, right? So I would challenge people to think very hard about, not just about belonging, but also about growth. Right. Self-growth is very important as well.
I think, a couple of things that we have been trying to surface for our constituents is just that, right? Where it starts with work inwards, right? I think that the consistent message that we've all touched on and in every episode is, it starts with, I think, identifying all of your perhaps save it for another day type of conversation, things that we are all very good at being avoidant of, right? Whether it's your finances and or the challenges that we're facing at work that could turn us into, okay, let's perhaps find something else. But then if none of that is really grounded in actually a tangible thing, then we're working ourselves towards potentially not the greener pasture, so to speak. Right.
For me personally, I started telling family, it's like, I'm just having a bad day. I can't talk right now. Because that also helps with that cultural expectation. Because I find for myself, because we don't talk about being tired from work, being exhausted by work, we're seen as, you got it. You went to work, just give me the $200 a month. It's fine. You have no issues. You know, when I'm home, we had to do this and this and this. That's real struggle. But you're in corporate America. What kind of struggles do you have, right? And sometimes mental exhaustion
Right.
can be a struggle as
Of
well.
course.
And sometimes you just want to come home and just watch a show and just be at peace, right? So I think articulating and having conversations with families and just to say, not today, I can't do it today, or I don't have it this month, I can't give you that $100 or $200, I can't help you. I have something going on with myself. I have to prioritize myself. That's extremely very important to articulate that. What you don't communicate may not be understood.
It's another layer of transparency,
Yeah.
right? It's something that I was kind of curious about from your perspective. If, like, when you do identify all the various sort of historical assistance that you've already done, and now we're getting into the phases of, you know, you have your entire sustainment of your career, your living standard, everything here. Has there ever been a rejection then, right, from back home? Like, so the whole entire, you know, your culture of community and loyalty and all of that. So if there were resistance, have you faced any kind of pullback?
Yeah. Do you, just to clarify, do you mean rejection I reject or
No,
I have been rejected?
they then isolate you, like,
Oh,
oh,
of course, because now you're seen as the other. Now, people, there are times that people reject you not because you've done something wrong, but because now you're different.
okay,
Different in mindset,
yeah,
different on how you speak, different of how you dress, just being different. And sometimes that's a very hard pill to swallow. And that can be very lonely because you're rejected from who you used to know, but you haven't found where you're going yet.
right,
So you're in this middle ground of, again, belonging. Where do I belong? And it's not just from like a culture perspective, it's also from a mindset perspective, right? Because when you're rejected, sometimes, actually, I'll be very vulnerable. I thought it was my fault. I was like, what did I do? I'm just trying to better myself, but what did I do?
right,
I am trying to get to a place where I can then help you. But if you reject me now, I can't help you. My whole goal was to be sustainable so I can then come back for you.
Right.
But if you reject me along the way, I just feel, so I will say worthless. I feel like, well, I'll feel worthless. I'll feel like, well, what's my value? Because we were taught at the young age that community was the number one thing. Loyalty was the number one thing. But loyalty to you is different from loyalty to me. Because loyalty to you was dependency. Loyalty to you was entitlement. Loyalty to me was sustainability, was authenticity, was honesty. So when you have that different mindset, you will get rejected. But you have to then be honest with yourself, find your new community, and you can still help from afar. And one thing I would also say is when I now help, it's not out of obligation. It's just true out of love. I help with what I can give. I don't help because I have to give anymore. I help because I want to give.
Right.
So even if you don't take it, I'll find a ways to help you. You may not know it's from me because I still have that love for you.
right,
So sometimes, and I love this famous, I don't know who said it, it's like, you're not my enemy. You don't have to eat at my table, but I still want you to eat. And I love that
that's
saying.
beautiful. My goodness,
I love that saying because just because you reject me, it still does not take away the love I have for you.
Right.
It still does not take the appreciation I had for you when you were there at that one of my lowest moment in time. But I still care about you and I'm going to give it to you. Not because I have to or I'm obligated to, but because I now can and I now can give to you. And all I needed was time. And you didn't grant me that time, right? And oftentimes people who have made it or gone to the top, they would say that. It's like you become lonely because every stage you go, people shed, right? So
Yeah.
you always have to be comfortable with being lonely, but also be honest and be communicative because when they do leave, if they do leave,
it's not meant for you.
it's not meant. You did that's my biggest thing. I did the best I could at the time, because we can always say hindsight is 20/20. You coulda, you shoulda, woulda, but I did the best I could at the time. So I know when I go to sleep at night,
You're at peace.
I am at peace.
Yeah.
And I love that.
No, you can't. I mean, one of the things that none of us can ever do is slow down time, go back in time,
Yeah.
right? Or fast forward. So for that statement, that quote you just said, where, I think we need to hold on to it a bit more, because even in the corporate world or within community, you're not my enemy, right? Like, we collectively, no one is there as an opponent, really, right? We're not at war. We literally, not speaking for other,
Globally.
yes, but the mindset really has to be, this is not non-combative, right? And be more inwardly responsible, transparent, hold yourself to a different tone. I would say, as we're thinking about messages that we want to pass on to our constituents and everything, you've mentioned, you still have love. You've held on to this, attachment, because it's still your home, right? Home away from home. Any encouragement, any tips on how do you rise above it? How do you sustain this like solo journey to some extent, and holding on to your culture, having love for your culture, knowing that maybe it's not the right time, can pick it up back later? Anything you would want to tell, our listeners, anything that can, I'm sure that they all felt a moment of hurt, right? When you think about this whole duality that we live in, but anything you can help us say, like, hold on to it.
I'll just say it again, be authentic, I want to say this, but I just want to say, who cares?
Yeah.
Who really cares? If you can look yourself in the mirror and says, I did the best I could, who cares? And I will go back to the whole guilt and the whole shame. It's okay. The other thing I would also want to tell people is forgive yourself.
Okay.
Forgive yourself, because we have so much pressure that we put on ourselves. It could be because of social media, where we need to be, who's doing what. Forgive yourself, because your parents did the best they could to give you the life you had. You're doing the best you could to seek up those opportunities. You're doing the best you could in the corporate world. You're doing the best you could with your friends. And if you're not, talk to them. A lot of the time, we are drowning in our own pain. A lot of the time, we think, oh, people are talking about us. People are doing this. People have lives. People are busy with their own issues.
No one's talking about you.
No one's talking about you. So forgive yourself and honor your culture. And what I mean by honor your culture is, like, culture-wise, they said pride, they said loyalty, they said all that. Yeah, you can honor that. But rise above it in terms of, I want to create that system in place. I want to create something that I never had. In order for me to do that, I need the discipline and I need the consistency. So I would say forgive yourself and walk in the rooms where you're celebrated. Do not think about those who, it's easier said than done. Don't think about those who reject you. But I would say to you, walk in rooms where you're celebrated. After a while, you won't even remember those who reject you. Will it hurt? Absolutely. It will hurt right away. But when you start walking with purpose, you start envisioning the life that you want to have and envisioning the person you want to be, the pain can lessen. The pain is not there forever, because I'll end with this. You did the best you could with the information that you had at the time that you had it, and you were honest, and you led with dignity, and you led with integrity, and that's all the best you could do.
I love it. Well, thanks, Atonia.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
And thanks, CAUFP family. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.